Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Oh, it, oh my God. Figures I go to start talking, I get a coughing fit. Oh, it's that, as you can tell, it's that time of season where allergies kick in. Oh, sorry about that, guys. All right, anyway, welcome back to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. As always, I am your very coughing host, Duck. And today is going to be a Photoshop edition. And what I wanted to do was just kind of go over the new feature. I was going to say new features, but Adobe only just really released one major feature for Photoshop recently. But what has happened is that Adobe has been popping up in the news in a very negative way. So what I wanted to do is I want to take a few minutes and kind of discuss some of the things that are going on with Adobe as far as the legal department is concerned. So please bear with me as I cover this. It may or may not be of interest to you guys, but it's definitely something to keep in the back of your mind. So what we're going to do is we're just going to oops, wrong one. And we need the desktop. Here we go. Here we go. If you haven't been paying attention, I don't blame you because, usually it's the people that use Facebook, on a more religious level and need to be aware of what's going on. Not only as far as what services are being offered, but how Adobe is handling certain parts of your personal information. And recently, Adobe has come under fire with as they kind of move more and more into their generative AI. Now, if you're aware, generative AI is where you type in a text prompt that describes kind of like an image, and then this artificial intelligence engine that is trained on, millions of images generates a unique image based on your input. And most famously, we have Midjourney, which has gone, leaps and bounds ahead in being able to really generate this, at times beautiful artwork without any intervention of an artist. And of course, it has pissed off the art community because they feel slighted that now anybody, with absolutely no talent whatsoever can generate these beautiful images that were trained on the artwork created by talented artists. So in essence, they feel slighted because, you can name it whatever it is. They literally stole people's artwork in order to train these models, these AI models, in order to generate artwork oftentimes that very much mimics these artists' styles. Now, Adobe was kind of a little bit late to the game with the generative AI. I'm sure there were a lot of battles within Adobe as to whether they should even step into it. But the step into it they did, and we see some aspects of that with the generative background fills, the background expansions, and now where we can do AI remove. So what it does is it analyzes what it is that it wants to remove, and it generates pixels that blend in to whatever the surrounding is. So it analyzes the image. It says, okay, I need a tree, I need branches, I need, a part of a house, whatever it is, and it fills it in. All right. So it's using the same engine that, the text to image uses for generating imagery. And of course, what ended up happening is, unlike Midjourney, which blatantly stole people's artwork, Adobe said, "Well, we did it in a better way. You know, we trained it on all the stock images that photographers have uploaded to Adobe Stock. Of course, they did it without asking permission if they can do it, but their license, when you upload images to Adobe Stock, you sign an agreement with Adobe saying, hey, Adobe has certain rights to your images in order to do their business. So in essence, unwillingly, a lot of photographers said, hey, here you go. Here's all my images. Do what you want, without realizing back then that what they were going to be doing was training their AI model on all that content. Because, fair enough, 5 years ago, we weren't really talking about that kind of advancement in artificial intelligence. So now what that did is it put a bad taste in people's mouth regarding Adobe. But Adobe's still the leading industry standard, professional standard for image editing. And it's not just Photoshop, it's their entire suite of tools, everything from photo editing to video editing to audio editing, the whole 9 yards. They are implementing artificial intelligence into all their tools across the board. All right, because that's the technology of the future. That is where we are going. And it's interesting because about 10 years ago, the discussion was that, technology has kind of plateaued. Where is technology going in the future? And the answer was pretty much, well, the way we interact with computers is going to change. For decades, it was you sit at a computer in front of a screen on a keyboard, all right? And then they introduced the mouse and its cousin, the trackball, all right? So that changed the way we interacted with, our computer systems. And that was pretty much the standard for many, 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 many years. And of course, people are playing around with the VR goggles in order to have a little bit more of a personal interface with the computer. But that's nothing more than taking the screen from in front to, something that's goggle shaped. So it's still a screen. It's not really much interaction. And then a breakthrough came, and AI started taking off. AI started being developed in the mid 80s, mid to late 80s. All right. And what happened is, like any technology, it's slow to catch up. But the way we interface with computers changed several years ago, where now we can talk to our computers and interface with our computers using our voice. All right. A prime example is like Google Home, Alexa, and any voice activated computer system. I mean, even our phones now have the ability for you to talk into them and do, like, searches and launch apps and things like that, just by asking your phone to do whatever task it is. All right. So technology is moving forward whether we like it or not. And Adobe now has to figure out, how do we navigate this? All right. And like I said, they take a couple of missteps. And then just very recently, and I wish I had a copy of the ad, but I couldn't find it in time for tonight's presentation. They ran an ad campaign basically saying, you know what? We don't need photographers anymore. We have generative AI. If you want an image, just type it in and poof, there it is. All right. Which really pissed off the community, because Adobe was built on the backbones of photographers. It was Adobe Photoshop is the main tool across the board for all industries related to manipulating and working with imagery. All right. So it's not just photographers, it's graphic designers, layout artists, publishing houses, you name it. There's a strong industry that supported Photoshop throughout the years and grew it to what it is. And then for them to turn around and say, you know what? With our software, you don't need photographers anymore. Oh my God. Talk about a misstep. Okay. So now what happens? Photographers are, like the proverbial village hunt with the pickets and the torches coming down to the castle gate, trying to storm the castle. All right. There's a lot of pissed off people. All right. And now the eyeballs are all on Adobe. And Adobe just recently released an update to their terms of use. And if you've been following the news lately on Adobe, there's a lot of hubbub about the terms of use. So what is going on with Adobe? Well, Adobe made a couple small changes to the language of their user agreement. Okay. And in particular, two specific areas. One was in the privacy clause, and the other one was regarding to your content. All right. And the first one was, they changed the word from "we may," I'm sorry, they changed it from "we will only access, view, or listen to your content" to "we may." All right, we may access, view, or listen to your content. And then they added through both automated and manual methods. And then they finish it with "by only limited ways and only as permitted by law." Okay, so now people are seeing the term automated methods, which we can now only assume that it is these AI robots that are scraping for content in order to train the current model of Firefly, which is Adobe's generative AI, and other things. So people are up in arms with the new language. Okay. Additionally, they went further and says that it's to enforce the terms as further set forth in sections 4.1 below, which we'll get to in a second. All right. So that's just a minor change, basically pointing that this is in response to or in addition to another section of their terms of use, which was another thing that really kind of irked people, because it reiterated the fact they're going to be including, they're going to be looking at people's stuff, okay, including manual reviews. All right, and then of course they changed one of the terms from child porn to sexual abuse material in order to be a little bit more clear and a little bit more in tune with the current times. All right. And they added that you may learn more about our content moderation policies and practices, including how we moderate content at our Transparency Center. And then there's a hot link for that. So those are the changes that they made, all right, that got people up in arms, okay? And now they're saying, okay, is Adobe looking at my stuff? All right. And if they are, why are they looking at my stuff? All right. So let's break it down a little bit. All right. In section 2, which is dealing with privacy, like I said, the wording that most people are concerned with is right at the very beginning, where they said we may, all right, remember they changed that, access, view, or listen to your content, all right, defined in section 4.1, which we'll cover a little bit, through both automated and manual methods, but only in limited ways and only as permitted by law. So a lot of people are saying, okay, well, this is telling me that you're going to be looking at my stuff, okay? But we're supposed to trust you that, it's only going to be in some nebulous, limited way, all right? And as permitted by law, okay? Whose law, what law? It's not really spelled out. They give some examples. All right. So the next line is, for example, in order to provide the services and software we may need to respond to feedback or support requests. Okay. So if you understand, if anything goes wrong with Photoshop, you can, initiate an automated ticket through their online support system, which links to your account. All right. So somebody needs to be able to look at your account in order to determine what it is that went wrong, and then be able to provide some kind of feedback to help correct the problem. Obviously, if they do not have access to your information, they cannot help you. All right. And if you ever looked at their feedback system, one of the things that they do ask is are you willing to provide your file or an example of what went wrong? All right. So you have the ability to say, okay, well, I'm working on this particular file here. This is what went wrong. Instead of me trying to explain it to them, I'm just going to pop off the file, send it to them, and hopefully they can replicate the issue. Okay. Without these clauses in place, they would not be able to, one, ask you for that information, or two, access that information. All right. So you need to give them permission to open this stuff up. All right. B, detect, prevent, or otherwise address fraud, security, legal, or technical issues. So obviously, if somebody, we are now in a software as a service subscription model. All right. So there are all kinds of security protocols in place in order to track who is legitimately using their software. Okay. So there are things they need to look at and have access to that is considered private information, such as your name, your email, whether you've purchased a legitimate license through Adobe, and actually paid for it. So all this information needs to be stored on their system in order for them to verify certain pieces of information. And of course, enforce the terms as further set forth in section 4.1 below, which again, we'll get into in a little bit, because that's another point of contention. Now, the thing is, all right. And they again inserted the word machine learning, which now people are associating with generative AI teaching. But if we go back 10 years before we had generative AI or generative image practices, all right, robots were able to scour through all this information in order to better serve their customers. All right. There is absolutely no human interaction in that. A robot goes in, searches for whatever metadata is available, and says, okay, this is what I'm looking for. It matches, it locates and then matches the information and says, so there it is, flags your content, and then sends it off for review. So this is all done through robots, through machine learning, all right, in order to make things faster, easier, better, for being able to provide the service for their customers. Okay. But because Adobe has misstepped several times with their generative AI and it's not just Adobe, it's the whole generative AI community as a whole, and has gotten a really bad rep. So now with terms like that, people's antennas go up and say, warning, warning, there's something fishy going on here. Let me pay attention and find out, what's going on. And now there's a lot of mistrust in the institution. All right. Why are you looking at my stuff? What are you doing with that information? Okay. But it's nothing new, unfortunately. Okay. The furthest back I could find with that particular wording before it got changed was back from October of 2022 in their privacy policy. All right. You can see we will only access, view, or listen to your content in limited ways and only as permitted by law. All right. So the wording's a little bit different, but it's almost identical. It's almost identical. We will only access, view. Again, they change it. We may access and view, okay, through both automated and manual methods. That was what they changed, okay. So you can see, going back, and I went back to 2015, and while the wording was a lot more simplistic, it was still pretty much the same fundamental access to your information that was being granted. So in essence, nothing has changed. The only thing they changed was the way they word things to make it a little bit clearer of how they are collecting this information and accessing this information. Okay. Especially now because machine learning is so much more prevalent. Okay. So it's one of those things. All right. And here, this one here goes back to June of 2015. And you can see, like I said, the language, it was a totally different section. All right. So they really rearranged things, but the language was a little bit more simplistic. And in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, I'm not a lawyer or anything, this is a little bit more clearer and a little bit more, how can I phrase it? Less threatening sounding than the other verbiage. And it says, we will not access. All right, where the new language says we may access, all right, which now, because there's a lot of distrust, it's like, what do you mean we may? We may. Oh, to hell with that. We know you are accessing our information. You are looking at our stuff. Okay, so previously we will not access, view, or listen to any of your content except as reasonably necessary to perform the services. So if there is a need, we will look at your stuff. Otherwise, we don't look at it. The way it's worded now, it's like, we may look at your stuff whether you want me to or not, at our, at our whim. Okay. So that's what got people up in arms. Okay. And in my opinion, the old way sounds a little bit more reasonable. And I think maybe the legal department should go back and really pay attention to how they are sounding, how they're coming across to their clients, especially in light of, all this new stuff. Okay. Now, on to section 4, which kind of addresses what they do with your content. Okay. And of course, they have here a usage rights. Okay. We reserve the right, but do not have the obligation. So it's like a little caveat there, to remove content or restrict access to content, services, and software if any of your content is found to be in violation of their terms. So a lot of people are saying, oh, so if you don't like something that I am creating, you can say, to hell with you, you're not going to be using our software anymore? In essence, yes. Okay. But again, this isn't new language. This language has been in play for many, many, many years. All right. And what people are not understanding is that one of the things that has really changed recently as internet services have gotten better is that, and of course, computers have gotten, bigger with their storage, is we now have cloud storage systems. So the new software allows you to do several things. You can work on your stuff natively on your computer. So you take it off your camera, download it to your computer, work on it on your computer, and it never leaves that ecosystem. Okay. But they also offer cloud service. All right. Because your license comes with up to 2 machines that you can install their software, install and use their software. And of course, if you need more machines installed with the software, you can buy additional licenses. But by default, you get 2 you get to play with two different computers. And in my case, I have my home computer, which is a laptop, and I have my work computer, which is a desktop here at work where I'm at now. So I have one license that allows me to have the same software on my laptop and on my desktop. Now, if I wanted to share work between my desktop and my laptop, I can do one of two things. I can go ahead and keep it within my own ecosystem and then just get myself a little thumb drive or a portable drive of some kind, put the file here, take this home, plug it in, download the file from there. Okay? And then when I'm done, make sure I get the updated version back onto the thumb drive so I can bring it back here, load the new version, override the old version from my desktop, and continue working. All right. So it's a bit of a workaround, but that's the old way of working. All right. And those of you who have been using this software for decades, like I have, that's nothing new. All right. However, an easier way is to go ahead and take whatever file you are working on, upload it to their server, to the cloud, okay? And then you can work on it from home, accessing the same file, so you don't have to worry about making sure you have the latest version to work on and switching them back and forth, because you're accessing the same file from two different locations. And in addition, you can say, hey, I want, Joe Schmo from company A to also have access to that file. So I'm going to, give them permission to access that file, and they can work on the same file by accessing it on the cloud. All right. So because of that, let's just look at it this way. All right. I have a picture. Okay. I took the picture. I own the copyright to that picture. I'll use this as an example. All right. I own the copyright of that picture. Okay. And what I want you to do is I want you to take this photo and bring it to a friend of mine across town. Okay. It sounds easy enough. We do it all the time. We don't even think about it. Okay. But if we think about the legalities behind the action, what I am doing is I am giving you the right to look at that photo, the right to hold it, physically hold it, in order for you to transport it somewhere else. Okay? Now, that's somebody else that you're supposed to give it to. They're going to be receiving the rights to edit the photo. Okay, so let's say I'm giving you the photo for somebody else to edit for me. Okay, they're going to have the rights to edit. So you are a third party in between me, the licensor, and them, the licensee. All right, so you are a third party. All right, so Adobe says, hey, we have third-party people that need to handle your images, okay? Maybe it's the hosting machine that hosts all those files in the cloud, okay? We need to give them permission to do stuff with your file. And that's what this language says, all right? So it's nothing new. It's nothing that hasn't been done before, all right? We have to give over a certain amount of trust to Adobe that they're going to handle our data in a sensible way, all right, without doing any kind of underhanded stuff. Okay. Um, all right. Then, because of all these things, all right, um, Adobe says, okay, in order for us to store your stuff locally on our computers, okay, you need to give us certain rights. And that's where part 4.2 comes in, okay? And it starts off solely for the purpose of operating or improving the services and software. You grant us a non-exclusive, meaning anybody has access to the photos that you want them to, all right? Non-exclusive means that you have the freedom to not only just, let Adobe use them, but let anybody you want to use that image. So it's non-exclusive. Worldwide, meaning anywhere in the world, because Adobe is a worldwide organization. They have, the North American headquarters that covers pretty much all the Americas. They have the European headquarters, which is handled in Ireland. They have a limited partnership in Australia, which is a subset of the Ireland group. So it's a international organization. So they need to be able to say, okay, well, you know what? The files that you're uploading to the cloud, they aren't really stored in the United States. They're stored on servers throughout the world. We have a bunch of them in India. We have a bunch of them in China. We have a bunch of them in, Timbuktu. Okay. So we need to make sure that, hey, we can take your file and we can put it where we need to in order to properly work with our systems. All right. Royalty-free, sub-licensable. Okay. Royalty-free means there's no money interchanged. Sub-licensable means that a third party can, handle these files. Okay. And the license to use, reproduce, publicly display, distribute, modify, create derivative works based on, and publicly perform and translate the content. Okay. So that's a lot that we are giving over to Adobe. And of course, we can, people are looking at all the negativity. Oh, you mean they can take my stuff and they can print a billboard and, do whatever they want with it? No. But if you want to take and change that background on your image utilizing their service, all right, the AI replace, all right, you have to grant Adobe permission to take your file, modify that file, display it, because they got to display it to you for one, all right? And in essence, because they are generating new pixels, they are going to create a derivative work based on your requests, all right? Anytime you edit an image, you are generating a derivative work, okay? Small changes, but it's a derivative work, okay? So in essence, you're giving Adobe permission to do all this stuff with your files in order for them to do what they have to do as a service to you, all right? So again, this is all language that is not new. It's been around for a while, okay? And it's gotten a lot of people up in arms. Okay, especially because in the section in between where it says the use of services and software, which is basically Adobe's permissions for you to use their stuff. They go, we hereby grant you non-exclusive. All right. So it means that it's not just you that can use their software. If you have an employee using your computer, they can use it too. Okay. They're going to be using it under your license. So it's non-exclusive, but it is limited. All right. Because it's limited to 2 machines. Okay. Revocable right, meaning that anytime they can say, hey, you can't use their software anymore. All right. And they have that listed in their terms of use. If you do something to that goes against the community regulations, they can say, you know what? We're pulling our license. We're going to cut you off. You're not going to be able to use their software anymore. Okay. Like I said, to install, access, and use the service and software that they make available to you and that you license from them. Okay. And again, each license is for one person and cannot be shared. All right. So that means you cannot take your license and give it to your best friend who's going to use it on his photo studio, separate from yours. Okay. So a lot of people say, well, this seems like a little bit of a double standard because, you're taking our stuff and you're saying you have unlimited use of this. Okay. But yet with your stuff, we're limited. Okay. But if we think about it, it's pretty much justified. But a lot of people are looking at as kind of an unfair double standard. Okay. All right. So part of the thing that also have people up in arms is that they just look at these 2 little blocks. All right. If you really want to understand what Adobe is doing with their stuff, you have to not only look at their terms of use, but also their privacy policy and what kind of information they collect and how they use that information. And it's no different than any other company, any other software as a service. Even if you go shopping on Amazon, they are collecting pretty much the same information that Adobe's collecting, right? Your name, your age, your gender, all right, phone number, email address, physical address, okay, your credit card information to process payments, all right? So it really isn't anything new, and it really isn't anything nefarious, all right? It's just, in my opinion, the language that they used makes them sound nefarious. So anyways, I wanted to, point that out to anybody who was following any of what was happening with Adobe, and then just kind of clarify a little bit. Okay. If you have any doubts, feel free, just read it through. It pretty much explains everything, and I think that's what happened is people were just not really looking at the whole picture and just concentrating on those few trigger words. Okay. And justifiably, because Adobe, with their language choice, big misstep. With their advertising saying we don't need photographers, big misstep. With the current environment of, machine learning and generative AI being, looked on so negatively, it's just a big melting pot of ick that people just have a sour taste in their mouths, and it just kind of, came to a head here. All right. Anyways, any questions on anything that I just covered?
No questions, but the observation, you were right. In some of the WordPress groups I'm in, some admin groups type of thing, yeah, they were just going nuts because everyone was assuming that if I open Photoshop and do any kind of work, it belongs to Adobe now. That's what everyone was thinking.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Uh, which just kind of triggered a memory. All right. Every so often, we have the same fear in Facebook, in Instagram. All right, because their terms of use pretty much says the same thing. All right, you grant us pretty much full reign over your images to do whatever we need to do in order to run our service. And a lot of people look at it and they only see those key phrases and say, "Oh, they want full ownership of our images." Okay? And no, a license is not ownership. A license is not copyright. They're two separate things. Okay? And if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about licensing images and what the difference is between uh, um, a copyright and a license, let me know. I'll put something together. Okay, because it can be pretty tricky. All right, especially if you want to monetize your images, you need to understand licensing. So, all right, any questions on what we covered with this whole Photoshop fiasco or Adobe fiasco? Anything? Okay. All right. What I'm going to do now is where am I? Hold on one second. Let me get myself organized here. Okay. So, as far as what is new with Photoshop, um, oh, if you upgrade, yeah, if you're on the subscription service, you know that every so often you're asked to upgrade Photoshop and Lightroom to the latest version, right? And with the latest version, a lot of people were getting this, hey, we upgraded our terms of use. You need to, approve this before, going forward. All right. And this is where, all this fiasco came from. All right. So if you haven't yet received that notification, you might. All right. Or like with me, I got the notification. I didn't think twice. I said yes. Unfortunately, I'm one of those that kind of has a blind trust in Adobe. I probably shouldn't, but Adobe hasn't really done much with my stuff. I don't use the cloud. I'm old fashioned that way. I still transfer my files manually. Okay. Or recently, I've gone into using Dropbox for moving files, through the cloud because Dropbox has a different set of rules. Okay, they don't go snooping through stuff like Adobe is claiming to. Okay, they have no need to. All right, and they claim no rights of use to any of my content. Okay, they're pretty much just a storage service. All right, and the argument is, well, if Adobe is using the cloud just to hold stuff, why are they not using the same languages as Dropbox and all these other cloud services? Okay, because they're in essence they're storing stuff, but it goes a little bit beyond that, and I think I've covered it where they actually are going in, opening up those images in order to do some behind the scenes work. If you use any of the neural filters, okay, if you use any of the Firefly generative AI, background replace, uh, um, um, object deletion and things like that. Okay. It's all using Firefly. It's using machine learning. It's using artificial intelligence. All right. So anyway, um, so as far as the latest upgrade, they really didn't do very much other than add um, one little thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover that in pretty much quickly here. Okay. As always, I typically start from Lightroom. Okay. I do a bunch of editing within Lightroom. Uh, um, and like I said, for the most part, it's gotten to the point where a good 90 to 95% of the edits that I do are being done in Lightroom. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't share my screen, so I apologize. Oh my God, I should have done that previously. Okay. All right. So, like I said, I will do a certain amount of editing within Lightroom simply because it's easier for me to edit in Lightroom with the Lightroom tools because they just, there's no way to deny it. They made this super easy, super easy. All right. So we can, uh, manipulate a bunch of things right within Lightroom. Okay. And we covered this last week where we can use the latest lens blur filter where we kind of say, okay, uh, here it is. Adobe needs to look at our image and needs access to our image. Is going to be Adobe just grabbed this image to look at it. Okay, so that's part of the user agreement. I am giving Adobe the right to look at my work in order for them to provide the best service possible. Okay, so here we go. We're going to visualize our depth. All right, and what I want to do is I want to just limit it to kind of like that flower there. And we're going to add, a lot of blur. I like a lot of blur. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Maybe we'll add some blur with our brush. Let me make the size a little larger, and we'll take these petals in the foreground. All right. Not very realistic, but hey, you know what? We're going to blur those out. Okay. All right. Okay. Once I've done my editing in Lightroom, I will go ahead and send it to Photoshop. And I normally do it just with Control E, which will basically just open it up into, there it is. Opens it up into Photoshop. Okay. So what did Photoshop add? Okay. Well, excuse me. Up to this point, if you want to obviously work non-destructively, okay, what you do is you say, okay, what is it that I want to manipulate? And you're going to go to your adjustment, layers, okay, and you're going to say, I want to, in my case, let's say add a curves adjustment. All right. You guys know curves is like pretty much my go-to tool for any kind of, manipulation on Photoshop. Okay. So once I have this, I will go ahead and say, okay, what do I want to do? In this case, let's say I wanted to make the background a little bit darker. Okay. So I go ahead and I'm going to pull this down, all right, which of course makes everything darker, all right, um, because we're working globally, okay. And then from here, I will go to my mask, all right. So I'm going to make sure that my mask is selected. I will grab a brush, all right. Make sure that my brush is a nice soft round brush. Using the square brackets, I'll make it a little bit bigger. And then of course, make sure that black is my foreground color because my mask is white. I'm going to mask out, okay? So I usually use the letter X to flip back and forth, okay? Or you can just come here and hit that little two-way arrow and it's going to do the same thing, okay? Whatever's easier. Then I come here and then I just paint, all right? In this case, I'm just making little taps, okay? And my mask is now masking off the flower, so the only thing that's being darkened is everything in the background. All right, so if I turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, okay? You can see the effect, all right? That's how we normally do it, all right? Let me get rid of that. Somebody at Adobe say, hey, you know what? People are accessing Photoshop from more than just their desktop. They're using their, laptops. They're using their Chromebooks. They're using their tablets. We need to make something that is a little bit more user-friendly for some of these other devices. So they came up with the adjustment brush tool. Okay, the adjustment brush tool. All right, so if you don't see it, it's where your brushes are. Okay. If you still don't see it, look for the 3 ellipses. All right. And then if you click on that, oops, there it is. Edit toolbar. All right. Edit toolbar. And just look for the quick, what is it? Adjustment brush tool. Forgot what we're doing. All right, you'll look for the adjustment brush tool here, and then you just drag it over to where it says toolbar. So everything in this section here, all right, are tools that are not in your toolbar, okay? And what you'll do is you'll basically bring them and put them in here, and then you'll have access to them, okay? And you hit done. All right, so in here, in my case, it's with my brush tool. It's the adjustment brush, okay? And I'll show you how it works, and then I'll give you my opinion of it. And again, it's just my opinion. All right, so let me make this a little bit larger. You can see it, okay? So we have a brush, all right? And we can select any of our brushes that we want, okay? I usually go for the soft round when I'm working with anything with a mask, okay? And then we have our content-aware taskbar, okay? Content-aware taskbar. If that is not visible, just go to Windows, and then all the way at the bottom, you say contextual taskbar, contextual taskbar. Make sure that's checked, and then you will see this, all right? And I covered it in previous episodes, all right? And all this is it gives you ready access to the most popular tools available to you at any given state that you have your tool set to. So if you are in the spot healing tool, you'll see that it's going to, pretty much change and give you a certain number of options All right. And if you are, let's say, in the patch tool, all right, that changes a little bit. If you are in the brush tool, all right, it gives you, it really doesn't change very much. Okay. Um, the eraser tool, oh, I wonder if it's because I'm, no, okay. No, never mind. All right. All right. But usually it'll change according to what it is that you are looking to do. Okay. All right. So we have the adjustment brush tool, and you can see that we have a drop down. Okay. And this is the same exact thing as what is available in your adjustments. Okay. In your adjustments, we have contrast, we have curves. I'm sorry, we have levels, we have curves. All those are right here. Okay. So what this does is it basically says, okay, rather than picking what layer effect you want to do, you're just going to pick the brush, pick the tool, all right? In my case, again, it's going to be curves, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and start painting, all right? And this is where it's a little bit different, okay? Because it gives you an arbitrary adjustment, okay? Arbitrary adjustment. So you can see I've pretty much blown out the exposure on the flower. So what I now got to do is now just come down and make whatever adjustment. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to darken my background. All right. So I could have painted the entire background, but that's a lot of work. And from experience, I know I'm just going to paint on the flower and then invert my mask. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to do Control Command I, and it inverts it. Okay. And then now I can go ahead and make whatever adjustment in order to darken my background. Okay. Now here's one of the problems that I discovered. Okay. If you look, the white line represents my RGB channel. Okay. Actually, hold on one second. Let me do this. I'm gonna disable that for 1 second. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna create my curves adjustment. I'm gonna bring that down. Okay. And I'm going to repeat what I did before. I'm just going to go ahead and mask off. Where am I? Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong. I'm just going to go for regular brush. There we go. Oops. Make sure I'm on the mask. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so I have the same exact effect. Okay, same exact effect. Okay, but when I did it with the adjustment brush, all right, I had to do an extra step in order to invert it. Okay. Let me get rid of that for 1 second. I could have, like I said, I could have just selected my curves and then started painting in the background. All right. Because I want to darken my background. But again, it's going to give me that arbitrary adjustment. Okay. So now I got to do all this painting on my background. Okay. And then come over here and say, I don't want it brightened. I want it darkened. Okay. So now I have the same exact thing as that one. Okay. All right. Let me darken that. There we go. Okay. All right. So these are both the same, well, kind of, sort of. All right. But you get the drift, right? Okay. In order to get to this mask, you can see, and I actually missed a bunch of stuff. Let me move it over here. Okay, I missed a bunch of stuff. All right, now I got to come in and I got to clean all this stuff up. All right, and my shape isn't all that nice, but it doesn't have to be nice in order to be serviceable. All right, it's still doing the same exact job. Okay, so one, in my opinion, a little bit of a workaround. Secondly, I want you to notice, all right, again, we have this line that dips down. That's our adjustment. That is our RGB value. All right, it's saying I want you to take all 4 channels, all right, and we're going to drop it down and make it darker. Okay. If we go to the one that I added by actually clicking on my adjustments layer down at the bottom, okay, I want you to notice there's a difference. Okay, there's a difference. What's missing is this curve up here. All right, that is visible on this one. Okay. And that is because when it initiated this curves adjustment, it changed not only the RGB channel, but the blue channel, the red channel, and the green. So if I go to my red channel, you're going to see there it is, that initial curve. My green channel, there it is, the initial curve. And my blue channel, there it is, the initial curve. Okay, I don't want those curves. All right, I don't want those curves. They're actually affecting the outcome of my image. Right. So now, in order to fix that, I have to go into each one of these 3 channels. All right. And I have to get rid of them. And you can see that it actually changed my background. So it has a very negative effect on my image of what I want to do. So hopefully, maybe in a future update, Adobe will fix that. All right. Who knows? But I don't need it changing all four channels. All right. I just needed to change the one, the more common one. Okay. And then if I want to modify something, then I can do it. All right. The fact that it starts off brightening everything, you know what? I'm not really bothered by that, simply because sometimes what I will do, okay, when I create, here, let me switch this on. I'm going to go ahead and bring this back. Okay. Oftentimes what I'll do is I will make my adjustment first. Okay. So it's the same as if I was using the brush. The brush is automatically, without my input, making an adjustment. All right. And the reason it does that is so that you can see what the adjustment is and where you are applying it. Okay. In the old method, we're making an adjustment so we can see what the adjustment is. All right. And then I go in to limit it to where I want. All right. So in this case, I'll go ahead and, I'll do an invert. All right. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to invert. Okay. I just want to mask out the flower. All right. So I'll take my brush, black as my foreground color, and I'll go ahead and paint out what I don't want on the effect. Okay. And then at that point, I can fine tune my adjustments. All right. And if I need to change one of the color channels, at that point, I can. Okay. I can do that after the fact. All right. There we go. We'll add a little bit of blue. Okay. All right. So that's the tool. That's how it's used. And in my opinion, it's probably not the best. All right. However, depending on the machine you're working on and how you access it, whether it's through a mouse or through a pen tablet, or a trackpad, it actually may be a little bit easier to work on a file using that tool. All right. So I suggest, play with it, see if it does anything. Why can't I grab that? There we go. See if it's beneficial to you and use the tool that way. Okay. All right. Where else can we use it? All right. Actually, where does it fail? Here, let me open this image up in Photoshop. Okay. Where it fails is, like for example, in this image, this was taken at a car show recently, and I did a close-up of this hood ornament, and as you can see, it's a chrome ornament, so it's going to reflect everything around it, all right, on a very shiny car hood that has a color, all right, that kind of like teal, bluish green color, bluish green, okay. But it's also very reflective, and it's reflecting the car that was next to it that was red. Okay, so we have all this red leaching into the image, and I said, well, what I want to do is I want to get rid of that red because it's pulling my eye away from the subject. All right. Okay, my subject is the hood ornament. That's where I want the viewer's eyes to go, but instead the viewer is trying to figure out, hey, what's being reflected here? It's red. It's a contrasting color to what the car is. All right. So because it's contrasting, it's pulling the eye in. Okay. It sits behind the wing. All right. So there's a tangent going on here that pulls our eye into it as well. And then, of course, we have a little bit of it here. All right. So that little bit of red reflection is having a very negative impact on this image. What I want to do is I want to get rid of that red and possibly replace it with the blue. All right. So if we go to our adjustment brush, we look here and we have, well, what can we use to replace one color with another? Well, we have hue and saturation. All right, so let's pick that. Let's make my brush we're going to make my brush a little bit smaller. Okay. And just like everything, as soon as I touch it to the canvas or to my image, it's going to create a new layer, new adjustment layer, and it's going to allow you to now paint on the mask. So it's a one step in that respect. What you don't know is what is that effect layer doing. Okay, so in this case, Photoshop says, you know what, we're just going to up the saturation, okay, which is not what I want. I don't want to increase my saturation. What I actually want to do, all right, let's bring that to 0, okay. What I actually want to do is replace, oops, pressed the wrong button. What I want to do is replace the red with that teal, okay. So now I got to figure out a way to, all right, there we go. All right, and now I got to figure out a way to really just increase, all right. I don't want to, all right, let's pick something really gross in order to see, all right. And we got to expand our, yeah, see, it's not going to allow us to expand beyond that, okay. All right, and then I got to figure out, you know, I need to go to that kind of, that bluish color. There we go, okay. All right, so yeah, it's not very good, okay. This tool doesn't allow me to do what I want, all right. So in my opinion, unless it's a very specific task that you need done with either a hue shift or a, you know, either saturation or desaturation, or maybe even just increasing the luminance, yeah, this tool is not going to be all that useful in this manner, all right? Because the way I have to make the mask is inappropriate to my needs for this image, all right? So there's where it fails. What I need to do is I need to create a hue adjustment layer, okay, just like before, all right? But this time I'm going to go ahead and make a selection, or actually, you know what? Let me get rid of that. I'm going to make my selection first, and I'm going to do a color range, all right? I'm going to use red as my color range, okay? And it kind of gives me a little bit of a preview here, all right? And let's see, selection. I'm going to do a quick mask, all right? And you know what? Let me do a sample color instead, all right? And what I'll do is I'll increase my range, increase my fuzziness. Oh, there we go. All right, increase the range. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. I'm actually able to see a little bit more of the red. Okay, especially down in this, oops, where are we? Especially down in this area here that the previous tool missed. Okay. Okay. All right. I can add another section. I'm going to add this. Okay. And maybe increase the fuzziness. There we go. Okay. Now I have a selection. Now I can go ahead and click on my tool. And as you can see, I have a much better mask that's purpose built for my needs to get rid of that color cast. Okay. So now I can go ahead and make my manipulations and say, okay, I'm going to now bring it over more into the blue, maybe lower the saturation, maybe, you know, lower the darkness, okay? And now, before and after, okay? And what I want you to look at the wing here, definitely look here, all right? This is still a problem, but we can fix that with a different tool, okay? So it's not like anything else. It's not a one tool fixes everything. All right. But here it is. Got rid of all that red. After, before, after. Okay. And then now I can create another layer here. I can go into my spot healing brush tool, and I can go ahead and just take that. Oops. Let me make my brush bigger. There we go. There we go. And just like that, I've pretty much fixed it. Okay. All right. So before, after. Okay. All right. So you can see there are a lot of limitations to that tool. Again, it's a fairly new tool, so I'm sure there's going to go through some changes as Adobe kind of fine tunes it a little bit better, especially once they start receiving some input back from users saying, hey, you know, we hate this about it, we love this about it. They'll tweak it. But my hope is that you know, everything that I've taught you up to this point have been, you know, selecting layers. I mean, the layer effect first and then applying it. Maybe this is just a different way of either reinforcing the lessons, or my hopes is that because it's presented in a new manner, maybe it'll give you that aha moment and you go, aha, that's what I got to do. Okay. And if that's the case, then we can consider it a success. Okay. But, you know, I'm a little bit more of an advanced user. I think, you know, for my needs, it's kind of a step back. It's not that I'm old fogey that's set in my old ways. It's just that I think the new tool adds unneeded steps. And unneeded aggravation, as I showed with the curves adjustment, that just irks me. Okay. All right. Anyway, so that's the new tool. All right. Any questions on that?
No.
That was a very definitive no. Okay. All right. So go ahead, play with it. See what you think of it, you know, and then let me know. See if it helps you. Let me know if you find that it's, you know, you're running into the same frustrations I do, you know, let me know. Okay. So anyway, that's pretty much what I got for you guys today. Any questions on anything regarding Photoshop? Especially you, Carol. We haven't seen you in a while. Welcome.
I know it.
How you been?
I had neck surgery and
Oh, fun.
spinal fusion, C2 to T2.
You know, that just
How did that
sounds-
come about, Carol?
That sounds so scary.
I know it was I started getting electric shocks down my arm, and I had an MRI, and I had 3 compressed nerves. So I don't know, they went in through the front, and you know, they opened them up, and because I had compressed discs behind, instead of having like one surgery, you know, like every year, I had it all at once.
Oh,
So it went through the front and the back, and it was yeah, it wasn't very fun.
no.
But I'm
no,
better
I
now.
can-
It's
yeah.
just that I have to twist now, and photography really, it's hard to bend down and, you know, look up
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
sky. It's really hard.
Okay. If you do not have a camera with a flippy back screen, you
Yeah,
might
I
wanna
do. Yeah,
okay, good.
but
You're
even
gonna have
so,
to
but
rely
even
on
so,
it.
just using my iPhone, you know, it's just, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. So
And but I'm coming along.
Good.
Thanks.
Now, will the flexibility become better over time, or is that it? You're pretty much
No,
limited?
it's permanent.
Yeah.
I knew that I'd have a decreased range of motion, but
Okay.
um, it was scary. I couldn't hold things. I would get, like I said, it felt like an electric shock when you plug something
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
a socket, and I never knew when they were coming. And I had tingling and numbness on my hands. So,
Yeah.
and it was all attributed to the nerve compressions.
Yeah. So I can imagine during New Year's Eve doing the celebration with the champagne. Oh. uh, yeah, that could be a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, I'm glad everything's working out okay, even if you got limited resources. Did it
Carol,
did it solve the tingling problem?
Well, it takes up to a year for all that, but it will definitely stop it from getting worse. And it did stop the electric shocks, but I still have tingling in my left two fingers here, on
Oh,
these two
okay.
fingers.
Right.
But hopefully it'll go away now.
Awesome.
I had my surgery February 7th, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, good to see you back, and
oh, thanks.
hope your recovery goes as expected. So,
Oh, thank you.
Carol, do you go to physical therapy?
Yeah, I did physical therapy. Yep. Now I'm going to the gym. I'm only going to do physical therapy once a week now. But
May I ask where you do physical therapy? I know you don't.
yeah,
often.
you know what, Corbin's Corner, IV Rehab. I guess it's a chain.
Okay,
But it's right next to Tavern on the Square, right to the right of it.
okay,
And yeah, they're really good there.
good.
good endorsement. Oh,
Yeah.
before I forget, let me go ahead and I forgot to mention coming up. Coming up is the Dynamic Seniors Experience with Nathan Locker and Josh Hanna. They're coming in and they're going to be doing a full day presentation on how to photograph seniors. All right. Even though they kind of concentrate on seniors, these lessons can be applied to any kind of portrait work, whether it's, family portraiture, children, infants, it doesn't matter. They're also going to take you through the entire workflow, everything from setting up the shoot to photographing the seniors to post-processing, and even a lot of the business behind the portraiture as a service. Okay, so that's coming up Friday, June 28th. Like I said, it's a full day from 9 till 4 p.m. It's going to be at Elite Brewing. I believe it's Elite. Elite Brewery in Manchester, or Illicit Brewing in Manchester. So it's a great little venue. We're going to be there pretty much the full day. Pizza for lunch. Of course, you can grab all kinds of artisan beers there. All right. And that's a Friday. All right. In order to register, you have to go to ctppa.com. All right. Because this is hosted by the Connecticut PPA, and register there. Okay. Also, coming up on the 22nd. Okay. So it's like the week before. I'm doing the multiplicity photo shoot that I do every year, where you kind of like create a scene that you populate with different versions of yourself. You'll be working in conjunction with a partner, and you take photos of yourself with your own camera, so that way when you go home you have all your images of yourself with you. All right. And then that Monday, I'll be doing a special Zoom specifically on how to composite your images, all right, into one cohesive image. All right. So That's free of charge. Let your friends know in your camera clubs. Have them come out and join us. It's always a lot of fun. Those of you who've been to them in the past can probably attest to that. All right. And it's going to be at Booth Memorial Park in Stratford. And hopefully, the flowers are in bloom now. The rose garden there, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful there. But they have all kinds of these little outbuildings and little nooks and crannies that you can use as a backdrop for your multiplicity photo shoot. There's even a little children's park we might even take a walk to and maybe do something fun around there. So anyway, that's on the 22nd, starting at 10 a.m. All right. Also not listed here, on Sunday, the 23rd, I will be working with Milford Photo doing their Yale photo walk. And if you're interested in that, I think there is a charge for that because, they have to pay for a tour guide from Yale to take us into kind of like these closed areas of the campus. And it's just a great way of photographing some of that beautiful architecture that they got at Yale. So if you're interested in that, you have to go to meetup.com, Milford Photo. All right. I think most of you are pretty much members of Milford Photo's meetup group. And then just register through there. And that's going to be on Sunday, the 23rd, I think, starting at 10 o'clock. This just got brought to my attention. So I haven't, had a chance to kind of add it to my list here. So anyway, that's pretty much what we got going on this month. And if anybody has anything else coming up that they like to share, please feel free. That's it. All right. Any final questions before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, Doug,
Sure.
on this AI on Lightroom, if you go to a large things, you kind of lose the resolution of it. Is there any way of taking a large item and breaking it up, say, one time and then make another copy of that and then do it again so you get some decent resolution?
Okay, so all right, I lost some bit
Okay,
of,
say you want to say something that's bigger than 2000 by 2000 pixels, which is the maximum that they have. They say they can give you a decent, take somebody out of the picture.
oh, I
If
see.
If they're bigger than that, is there any way of fudging it, like taking one and then making a copy of that and then doing it again?
Well, all right, so 2000 by 2000 is still
A good size.
a good size. All right, here, let me switch over to my Lightroom. Let me find, let me go ahead and share the screen. Share, there we go. All right, so, okay. So this image is 5,600 by 3,742. All right, so let's just round it off for argument's sake to 6,000 across by 4,000 up and down. Okay, so now if we divide this in half this way, right, and in thirds this way, each one of these squares is 2,000 by 2,000. Okay, so for the majority of the work that you do, that should be enough. Okay. If you're going beyond that,
Took the wrong photo. You didn't take the photo
What's that?
right. You didn't take the proper photo.
What do you mean?
You zoomed in too far, or the composition wasn't right if you want to take that much of something out of a picture.
Yeah, well, I'm not using it to illustrate, the removal. All right, but let's say I wanted to remove that blue car in the background. All right, which is going to be a tough ask for Lightroom to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to object aware and I'm going to do my generative AI. Okay, make sure those two are selected. Okay, and then with my brush, I'm going to go ahead and brush in on this car here. Okay, it's going to select it and I'm going to go ahead and hit apply, and I bet you anything it's going to fail. I can almost guarantee. Ooh, well, it got rid of it, but
Yeah, I
who
see.
knows what it replaced it with. Okay, but we'll keep it. We'll keep it. Oh, actually, let me see. That's number one. That's number two. Replace it with a different kind of car. And number three, that's even worse. I think that almost looks like a tag sale going on there. Okay. But you know what? I think the smaller texture of that is going to be a little bit better. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Oops. Okay. All right. And I am at 50%. Let's go to 100%. Okay. All right. And as you can see, the resolution, all right, disregarding the fact that it's a jumbled mess, all right, you can see that the resolution is pretty decent. All right. As a matter of fact, I would say the resolution is probably a little bit smoother and finer than my original. Okay. Because if you look at like this here, all right, see how smooth that texture is? All right. If we look at that gray panel there, how smooth that texture is. All right. Even this here, all right, how smooth that is in relation to, this, where you can see some of the native grain, because I was at, what was I? I saw 200. Okay. So there's a little bit of texture, not much. It's the natural texture of the image. Let me go to 200. Let's see. Okay. Can you guys see that texture popping through?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yep. Okay. But if we go here, all right, that texture is gone. All right. So in actuality, I think the replacement is better quality, if not, the best solution. But image wise, I think that's better quality. And I would even say you got to add a little bit of texture to that area in order to make it match. Okay. So at 2000 pixels, you have to be using a camera with a very high megapixel, maybe like 100 megapixel camera, in order to see a big difference. Or you have to select an area that's bigger than that 200 by or 2000 by 2000 pixel range. So what kind of image would you be doing, or would be working on, that you're literally taking more than a sixth of your image out?
No, I'm just fishing. I'm just putting a question out there in
Okay.
case
All right.
happened. But I noticed that the resolution, that's a pretty good. I use that thing that what the hell they call it?
Firefly?
No, the AI that they're using is pretty good most of the time. It does a pretty good job for me.
Yeah. So where you're gonna notice a big difference is when you do like a AI expand, where you're expanding your canvas in Photoshop.
Yeah,
All right.
I see.
Because again, now remember this image, we're rounding it up a little bit, but it's 4,000 pixels, up and down. Okay. And if we're going to take this entire height and expand it out, all right, we're going to expand it out. Let's say we're going to expand it out 300 pixels, okay, which isn't a lot. All right, so it's not a lot this way, but we have almost 4,000 pixels going up and down. All right, at that point, yes, you might see some expansion of the pixel. You're going to see some pixelation. Okay. So what's been suggested is once you do, you basically do it once, all right, and then you go back into smaller chunks, okay, and this is in Photoshop, not in Lightroom, and without adding anything to the prompt, you just hit enter, and what it's going to do is it's going to regenerate a new image that is very similar to the underlying image. It's still going to change it, but it's going to be similar enough. But what's going to happen is the pixel density is going to go back down to more normal because we're now working within the 2000 pixel limit rather than exceeding that 2000 pixel limit. Okay, so that's probably one workaround. All right. The other workaround is to, once you have your expand, you just use the traditional tools of, the clone stamp and things like that to kind of fix up any problem areas that are very, very noticeable. Oftentimes, if something has enough texture, you might not even see that kind of pixelation. Okay. And then just, anything that really, really stands out, then you go in and you do a little bit of cleanup. So, couple workarounds.
Okay, thank you.
But, I'm kind of a little old fashioned, and I have mixed feelings about that AI expand, enlarge, where you're adding a fake add-on to a real scene. So you have a real scene that you were out there, you meticulously set up your camera, you took a photo, and then after the fact you said, you know what, I wish I had shot it a little bit wider. So you're taking an actual physical scene that exists in the real world, and you're adding fantasy to the sides, so if somebody is not familiar with the area, they will never notice it. But if somebody's familiar, they'll go, hey, kind of looks like, this location that I know of, but there's something weird. All right. They may not be able to put their finger on it first, but if they dwell on it, go, this whole side that you have in your picture, that's not there. So you might be called out on that. Okay. Stepping a little bit of a sidetrack. in the ongoing battle against the misuse of generative AI. A lot of software manufacturers, and I think Adobe is one of them to a certain extent, is now going to start adding metadata tags that flag AI use. Okay. And what's happening is that because there's no standardization, what is now starting to happen is people are submitting images to competitions that may have a little bit of AI fixing, whether it's replaced the sky, cloned out a tree, whatever the case. All right. And they use generative AI to make the change. All right. What that does is it now embeds that flag that says AI's been used here. All right. And the images are being disqualified. All right. And a lot of people are saying, well, 95% of this image is mine, taken with my camera. I only used AI on that small little 5% in order to make my image look better. But because it used generative AI and there are no standards to it, all right, they just throw in the metadata tag that flags it. People are getting turned down. So be aware of that. Okay, if you do any kind of entering into competitions. Okay.
Not entering. I've been using the AI a lot on some of the overseas photography when you get people in a scene that you don't, just messing the scene up with too many tourists. Well, I'm one of them too.
Yeah.
Like in Greece and in Italy, and you get the tourists in the street, and you got two or three people in there.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just want this one person. I want all these other people in there. That's the only place I'm using it.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah.
About for my own use, just to make my travel photography look a little more
A
professional.
little cleaner. Okay. Yeah.
Not cleaner.
Yeah. Then that's fine. That's fine. You know, you have to understand also what the end use of these images are going to be. All right.
Me.
Right. And in this case, yes, it's for your use. Okay. But they serve a purpose. They serve as a reminder of you being physically at that location. So even though, parts of it may change, in removing a person, maybe it kind of fills in what it thinks should be there, even though physically that's not true. Okay. That is a very minor thing in the whole spectrum of the photo of being this emotional connection to your experience at that location. You know what I mean? So you look at that image and you're not going to see that little correction. You're going to be transported back in time to that time when you took that photo. And you're going to go back in time to that trip, and you're going to pull out these emotions from that trip. And that's the important part.
To me.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Now, would it still be flagged if you use the old content aware fill?
Content aware fill does not use AI.
Okay, so get rid of the people.
No. Let me refer. This is where the term AI is so ubiquitous. It means so much that now when we start defining very specifics, the word AI does not fit in. Okay. When you use content aware fill, it does use AI, but it does not use generative imagery to do the fix. What it does is it analyzes the area around and uses the data that's already embedded in your image in order to create a patch. So it's not generating something out of fresh air, out of nothing, out of, you know, some kind of machine learning that it pulled from being trained on thousands of images. It's not pulling from that. It's actually looking at your image saying, oh, here's texture and colors that are very similar to what I got to replace that person with. Okay, so you mask out the little person you want to get rid of and says, okay, behind that person is all this texture. I'm going to use that texture to recreate something that matches. All right, so there's nothing generative about that. So you're not going to get that same flag. All right, so hopefully that answered that question. All right, so it's basically using the clone stamp tool, but the computer's doing it for you. I guess that's probably the best description I can come up with. All right. Okay. All right, I got to get rid of this, whatever that is. That is terrible. Oh my God. Generative AI is funny. So here's a little here's a little funny, I don't know, I guess you call it the sign of the times. Sign of the times. Okay. Everybody understands that this generative AI, Midjourney and all, you know, DALL-E and all these others, the biggest issue they have when generating any kind of person are fingers. All right. You've seen, you know, if somebody's like this, you see this really mishmash of fingers, or if they got their hand, they got like an extra digit. All right. And that's how you can very easily spot a AI generated image, because there are these anatomical anomalies, and mostly it's with the eyes and with the hands, especially either missing digits or extra digits. You know, there's a company that is making a physical finger. All right, you put it on kind of like a ring. All right, and it's literally a plastic extra digit. So you can fake the AI, you know, it's a joke. It's a joke finger to make it look like you are AI generated. Sign of the times. You
Well,
know?
isn't that what Kate Middleton did? She had extra fingers on that picture a while ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like
She
that. Yeah.
used,
That's
yeah.
how they could tell it was
Yeah.
manipulated.
But, you know, she fessed up to it. She says, I did my
Yeah.
own editing. I am not an
Yeah.
editor. All right. I'm using the tools that are available, and the tools fucked it up. You know, I give her credit for doing it herself, you know,
Yeah.
and not being controlled by the monarchy saying, oh, no, everything that
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
out has to be pitch perfect, you know. And she just wants
Yeah.
to be a regular person,
Yeah.
you know, and she can't be a regular, for God's sakes. If I made that same mistake, you think the press would come down on me? Hell no. You know, but no, because she's royalty, you know, they got to
Yeah.
jump down her throat for something, you know. Anyway. All right. Any final questions before we close it up? That's it.
That's it. Good night, all.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Once again.
Good night.
Next week it's Q&A. So if you have any questions about anything photography related, hit me up. Okay.
Great.
Be safe, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.